I'm Rebecca Caro, and welcome to another rowing chat. Just a quick reminder to all our listeners that we are on Facebook with a page, and we also have a website, which is rowing.chat. If you go there, you can subscribe to receive notifications of episodes that have published, and you get them just as a weekly summary. So it's, we hope, not too intrusive. If you are on the mailing list, you also get special offers and listener discounts. Now, each time I'm planning a rowing chat, I'm always looking for great stories to tell. And today, I'm really pleased to introduce my guest for today, who is Joline Esparza from JL Racing. Joline, welcome.
Hi, nice to be here, Rebecca. This is a real treat.
Well, we first met on the banks of the Thames in London, way back when you were first growing the business. And we're going to get onto that story a little later on. But first, would you introduce yourself and tell the listeners a little bit about your personal background in rowing?
Okay, sure. Most people know me as JL, and I answer to that, which is a lot easier than my name, which is fine. I started rowing at Stanford, so in college, before I even knew that the junior rowing existed. It was a dirty old wooden, beautiful A-frame boathouse that I'm sure many of you probably started with as well. And from there, I was fortunate enough to row with some amazing, actually Olympians who were amazingly wonderful in allowing us novices to learn with them. And that would be Kathy Thaxton, who was a sculler in the earlier 70s Olympics, first women's allowed for Olympics. But moving on to there, I made the national team in 82 and 83. I raced in Lucerne and was able to start my international career that way, and went to Lucerne in 82 and Rotsburg in 83. My claim to fame was being in a silver medal 8 in 82, which was a memory I really look back on and enjoy. And then in 83, I was in a 4. I did not make the Olympics in 84, but sometimes, as we all know, you learn more from what you don't win than what you do. And I came back home and started a family with my husband, Ken, who was my strength coach during the 83 and 84 campaign. So not only did I get very big and strong, but I met my partner for life and started a family. At the same time, I started JL Racing. And that was actually started as a sewing. Sewing had been part of my life since I was a kid. And I used to sew my clothes. And so when I realized that rowers, especially women, had absolutely nothing to wear. We were wearing baggy polyester, we were wearing horrible tank tops, things that were just baggy and saggy, didn't fit. I started to look for fabrics that would be technical, that would actually fit the athletes and fit the athlete's body, who are rowers, which, as we know, are all different than any other sport. So luckily I started slowly, and in a time period when the idea of startup was very different than it is today. I can't even imagine starting a business today, the way that you'd need the, millions of dollars and the fund me's, whatever. This was all done with, scrabbling with fingernails and buying what you can and, teetering on the edge. Should I get a machine? Should I get more materials? And then I started also working with athletes. Besides my friends, I worked with my husband's track friends. And that was the beginning of how I did a lot of my engineering and development, was very early on in finding the right materials. From there, it just gradually grew. And one of the things, and as Rebecca mentions, one of the things I was so fortunate to be able to do is in the late 90s, my family and we ripped up our roots and moved to Henley for a year. And I lived on the bank of the Thames, right past where the pub is. So just a few meters past the finish line is where our flat was. And we got to know at that point many of the members of the British national team, which was a real treat. So not only did we want to experience this for our family and learn more about Europe and Great Britain, but it was important to us to understand the markets from different regions. So as our business was growing, we wanted to really, really spend time and understand what the needs were for the different regions and countries. And everyone's decision process is different. You know, what is important to you, the timing, the fabrics, the climate. And this was such an amazing experience for our family and for our business. We always laugh, our kids were small, and many of the evenings that we spent, that Ken and I spent as adults, were enabled because some of the national team members would watch our kids for us.
Excellent. Babysitting services, it's all part of rowing.
That's right, full service. So we built our business in the UK that way, and soon after that, not only did we start winning clubs there, but we did the British national team for, I want to say, almost 13, 14 years and several Olympics. So it was a real pleasure and a privilege to be able to work with the national teams there in Britain for as long as we did. We did many boat race teams.
Pause just a moment.
Sure.
So rolling back to that time in the 90s, my recollection of what was different about the JL business was a couple of things. The first was the double line shorts, which for me was, I think, a first. And secondly, I remember the gilet, the sleeveless over jacket, which may or may not have been waterproof. I'd never seen those before. And you had them with a fleece back, so that when you were sculling into the headwind in the middle of winter, your back was a little warmer.
Right.
What else were you doing at that time that was new?
So the reason that is one of my favorite garments. It's funny that you bring it up because I love it's called the Turtleshell.
That's right.
Because I was also cycling when I was training for the national team. I was cycling pretty seriously, and it's actually after I finished my career, I kind of thought, well, you know, maybe I'll take on cycling because I'm pretty good. And I had a coach who said, okay, let's do some time trials and this and that. And I was riding everywhere. But you know what, I do a little segue here because cycling does come into this. I loved cycling, but I didn't love it. I didn't love it like I loved rowing. So I thought about all of the time that it would take, and I just couldn't put the same energy into training for cycling as I did for rowing. However, back then, cycling was in the beginning of its technical, learning the technical properties of fabrics and garments as well. And one of the things that for decades cyclists would do is going uphill, you get very hot. You reach the top of an incline, top of a mountain, whatever, and you stuff the front of your jersey with either newspapers or, if you were lucky, a piece of a leather chamois, because chamois were actually made with leather at that point. So there you are riding down this mountain with this, newspaper or chamois protecting your core. And rowers go backwards in the cold instead of forwards in the cold. So I developed the Turtleshell literally as a mirror of the cycling vest, which is now pretty common, and we make them as well. So I started out making, and everything I did was to allow the rower to do what they did without distraction, and also to keep the cost down. So I made my first Turtleshells with no zippers anywhere. It was, I'm going to make this so it's affordable and really work for going backwards. So it had a V-neck, really short front, but waterproof back, waterproof, windproof back. But trying to wiggle into a Turtleshell with no zippers in a single skull, that was real talent. So, you'd be out there and you'd be, okay, I'm not going to flip. I'm getting this on. So after a few years, we added the zipper to the front and to the side for, getting on and off. And then we developed, and the full stretch was really important because you want to be able to move in it. So that product has actually been copied by every manufacturer. In a way I'm proud, and because it's what keeps rowers protected. So I do love that product, and I enjoy telling the story. Thanks for asking. That was not a plan, by the way. I did not tell you to bring that up. So
my personal recollections are part of the I suppose everyone will have their recollection of the very first piece of JL kit that they bought. And certainly the fabrics were nice. when you wore them, you could feel the difference, but it was hard to kind of explain. But that was my very first. It was navy blue on the front and fluorescent orange on the back. And in fact, I quickly replaced it because I have a long back. And so one of the other things I would love you to talk about is how you got into the custom kit where you could make the torso a different size than the shorts, because for me, that was just perfect.
Right. Well, I look like that all of my life. Part of the reason that I made my own clothing is because I didn't fit anything. I have a very long torso. And so, you'd have to buy a bathing suit that was just, if it was one piece, that was just, saggy on the top or nothing really fit. So I had to make everything longer on the top. So I decided that rowers are so different in so many ways. You can have someone who's 6 foot tall, but all of their length is in their legs. And if they sit down, they're shorter than everyone in the boat. And then there's a person, like me, or people even more extremely long in the torso. So it's not rocket science that you can make a top, add length to it, and then sew it onto a different size bottom. So, and the other reasons that my system developed is that first of all, I sized our garments for rowers, because rowers are not like the rest of the population. You go into a retail store. I'm not a big rower. I was in the bow, always in an 8. And in terms of rowers, I'm 5'10", but 145 pounds. So I considered myself a medium sized rower. So that's how I sized our garments on me. So and my size through my career was a medium plus one top and a small bottom. And there are so many different, and I can go into this as part of what happened later on in trying to translate my sizing system into a new production facility. But it's one of the biggest challenges that we had, trying to make that work in a different facility. But it's what has really set us apart from the beginning, and how we've tried to keep the fittable for rowers.
That's a great use of the word. Recently came to my attention about you personally, was your campaigning zeal. Now, campaigning, I suspect, is in your blood, but the first time that I really saw it come to the fore was a couple of years ago with regards to the US rowing organization who had taken a sponsorship. Can you give us the context for that and why you felt so strongly you needed to object?
Sure. Well, it's interesting you say I'm a campaigner. I never, ever, ever thought I was. I was going along my job, which was a lot. There's a lot of work. It's a lot of work to run a small business in a family context that you're trying to do things the right way, and you're trying to make sure everyone's taken care of in a lot of ways. And all of a sudden, when I say working hard, it's like nose to the grindstone. You are just working. The seasons come, they're fast. You've got to pound out what needs to be done. You're taking care of things. And so when the regatta season comes around, okay, we need to shift gears and to plan for a regatta season. You're building inventory, you're buying tickets for your staff, you're making reservations for the regattas, you're doing all these things. And it's like you've just got these things moving. And we were informed early in the season, I think maybe a month or within the month before the Crew Classic, which is the first regatta in April in San Diego, that U.S. Rowing had signed a contract with a clothing sponsor who was going to keep other clothing sponsors from attending the U.S. Rowing owned regattas. So those would be the big ones. We had a list of the regattas that were the best for business, most people, highest sales. And those were all of the regionals, the nationals, the championships, and we're at the very top of the regatta season. So all of a sudden we're faced with this terrible prospect of not being able to attend the regattas that made up probably more than 50% of our income for the year. And when you factor in what it is JL as a vendor does, and when we go around regattas, yes, we make money. And it's the money I use to pay my employees. It's the money I use to, invest in what you need to do to make changes and improvements. And it pays the bills. So all of a sudden, we were faced with this prospect that we wouldn't be able to go to these I think it's 7 or 8 most important regattas. And it seemed to me, I mean, I am all for sponsorship. I know sports across the board. I'm involved with cycling. I know track and field. I mean, we need funds. We need sponsorships. But I could not sit back and let something that seemed so unfair just to kind of go on without making a fuss. And so I suddenly
just pause for a moment there.
Sure.
So just to give a little bit of context to the listeners, I also worked in a rowing company for 18 years, and we sold product at that time to including the British rowing team. And after the Olympic Games in 2000, a few of us who had sold things to the British rowing team, and the British rowing athletes had won medals at the 2000 Olympics, we all got cease and desist letters from a lawyer saying that we were not allowed to use the word Olympic or Sydney Olympics or Olympic gold medal in any of our advertising. And at that time, Carl Douglas, who had made riggers and we had supplied rowing machines and things, he led the charge to protest on behalf of small people who couldn't afford expensive big city lawyers to defend ourselves against that sort of thing. So I have a ton of sympathy for your position.
Yeah. I mean, we work with licensing issues all the time, but this was something that directly affected our even ability to be there. So I felt like I couldn't, I had to take it to the people who were my friends. So the Crew Classics was coming up. And this meant that most of my friends, it's 2 places I see most of my friends, the Crew Classic and the Head of the Charles. So I figured I'm going to talk to people and find out, am I crazy? Is this wrong? So I brought a prop because Rebecca, kind of said, I'm going to be asking you about this. So this is what I had made and wore around the regatta. I don't know. Is this in the, there? Okay. So there's,
yeah, it says, be outraged.
Be outraged.
Ask me why.
So I wore this tank top around. Well, it's beautiful. It's the Crew Classic. So I wore this tank top around and I talked with anybody that would listen. I spoke with coaches. I spoke with other regatta organizers. I spoke with the rest of the vendors because a lot of people, most people didn't know about this. And it threatened not only my business, but the businesses of anyone else who was involved in selling clothing, for one thing. And so it was actually an amazing event because I'd be wearing this tank top and people that I didn't know. And this is one of my favorite thoughts. This man comes up to me and he's got, I think his son must have been, I don't know, 10 or 11. And I'm wearing this tank top and he comes to me and he says, and with his son, he says, ask her why she's outraged. And I thought, oh my gosh, the world is in trouble. I am so small. I mean, global warming, pollution, the decline of education, all these things are happening and I'm being selfish and saying, look at me, everybody, my little business is in trouble. So you say context, I had to many times make sure that I made this a message that was larger than myself. And so I needed to have a lot more. I needed to be open to people's questions, and I felt like I had so many good conversations. And so the regatta goes on for 3 days, and poor U.S. Rowing was there with their their Nike thing there, and so things started to build, and I spoke with a lot of people, and this was again the first time that I ever felt like there was an upswell. I then started writing. So I started writing, I wrote about what was happening in as factual a way as I could, and sent out an email to my friends who I'm so grateful, spread pretty wide and deep into the rowing community. And they spread it to their friends. It started to go on a Facebook. I wrote on the Facebook post, which I never do. And it, for the first time ever, I understood what going viral felt like. And it was pretty amazing, incredible to me what happened. It went viral. And I had people I had never known wrote to me and gave me the most wonderful buoying up of my spirit that I still feel. I've got chills. Some of the stories about, this was my first time on a junior national team. When I got my kit, it made it feel like I was part of something bigger than myself. People who were juniors from 20 years ago, 10 years ago, who still had their kit. Masters who traveled to Europe and were rowing there. I had just this outpouring of support that for the weeks and months that it took to resolve this problem, it was so it was amazing. It's hard to think of the words to describe what it felt like. But as a result, U.S. rowing had also been had been drowned with protests. So people wrote in, they emailed, they Facebook, they gave them, bad reviews, and we got great reviews. So it was really an incredible feeling, and it's from around the world. It wasn't just the United States, which was where it was, which is most important. And the resolution of this situation was very interesting to me, because it wasn't just a matter of a vendor not being able to do what they wanted. People took it as an opportunity to vent a lot more of the things that they wanted to say to U.S. rowing. I mean, there are always organizational challenges. Yeah. How do you handle regattas? What is your relationship with the LOC, with the people who run the regattas? So the board really got into it. It was a big deal, and it was a shakeup. And I think in the long term, as many of you know, we ended up having the sponsorship of the national team the year later. And so we worked actually very closely with U.S. rowing during this whole event. It was difficult communication-wise because it was a legal issue. They couldn't speak exactly to the problem. Here's what we're doing, whatever. They had to deal with it internally. But I had really wonderful communication with them to a point. Board members were getting back to me. People were writing letters back and forth. And there were some real changes, I think, in the positive way, that U.S. rowing listened. They had to listen to, like I say, the venting of so many problems. It's tough. I didn't envy them then. They're sitting in their chair, but I really do believe that the change that they've made and the progress that of being more attentive and answering problems, they've gone a long way. So yes, it resolved in our favor, and everyone was able to go to the regattas again. In a strange turnabout, though, I want to mention how there's a timely issue that's raising its ugly head one more time. That I believe, and my argument the whole time wasn't that you got to let JL in. My argument was you have to let everybody in. Competition is healthy. It's not if you go to the race and there's no one next to you, that is no fun at all. So that was on the top of everything that I wrote. It's competition is what we want. And so we're starting to hear the sounds of this thing happening again, where there are some vendors who are saying, I'm coming in, I'm gonna, I want to sell this, but you have to not let anybody else in either. So this is something that it's not as personal. It's not against, one big, U.S. rowing bad guy. U.S. rowing isn't the bad guy. It never was the bad guy. The bad guy is cutting out competition. So that might be happening again, and we're trying to get a feel for what the environment is, and see if we can keep competition in there. I welcome the other clothing vendors. We all keep each other honest. You know, you have to give people a choice. And I want people to look at my garments and say, okay, this is what I really want because it does what I need it to do. If it doesn't, you know, there's someone next door. If that works for you, you know, I want the rowers to get what they need, and we're the best.
There's no monopoly on good ideas. And, you know, certainly I've seen this over and over, because one of the things I specialized in when I was a retailer in the rowing world was finding the new and innovative products and putting them in front of the audience. And yeah, sure, some of them were short-lived and some of them had longer legs and some of them quickly developed into new and broader things, and some quietly died and went away. And this I consider to be normal. But what I particularly enjoy is seeing smart people come up with little innovations. Like I found a guy the other day who sells a little mount that will take a smartphone with an app, obviously, in your boat, but it mounts onto an NK block for a stroke coach. Well, that's unique to rowing. No one else has a block that's that exact size and dimensions, and, you know, and it was 3D printed, and I just thought, great, I want one of those in my boat.
That's right. And I want that too. I do. You know, one of the things we do as we source garments. You know, you have to buy T-shirts and we have to do things. So we would go to this amazing show called the Outdoor Retailer, and many people. It's pretty much a trade show for all the outdoor stuff, great mountaineering stuff, climbing, whatever. We'd often find something really interesting and new and creative. But that show morphed into just the huge brands that would come and show their product, which was great. But then they pushed out the smart little guy who now does their marketing online and the other startups and the FundMe's and whatever. But it's, you know, you want to see stuff and you want to feel it, and
you do.
Yeah. One of the other things about a regatta that was my point is that variety creates the atmosphere. You know, you want the regattas to be fun, festive. You want to have something to walk around and look at when your race is canceled, you know, and it's starting to rain, whatever. And, you know, you want to be entertaining. And so the more vendors, the more variety, that's where you're getting, you know, a lot, make it more festive. And what makes it great for spectators, because we need spectators, we need interest, we need more bodies, we need more butts in seats. So the more festive and colorful you can make a regatta, the better. So if anyone's listening and is working on, you know, setting up your regattas or has any input, make sure that all vendors are welcome. And you know, we became the sponsor. There was nothing at all in our agreement that I could never do that. I could never knock anybody out. So this is the one thing you can take away.
Fantastic. Well, that's great advice. But that campaigning then led to a new stage in the JL rowing business, and you formed a new partnership. How did that come about?
Well, in an interesting way, it did come about in part because of the success of now what you're calling a campaign. So part of what happened is, as a result of this whole, we'll just call it campaign because it's easier, is that our ratings across the board went just sky high. You know, we climbed to what I like to think is the top of the pile in terms of quality, in terms of service. The JL product, I like to think became known all around the world. I had partners in Belgium, in Britain, of course, in Germany, in Australia, in New Zealand, and in the US, it had a great following. There's always, I mean, our competitors, great. I think we improved their product as well. So there's this bettering and bettering of betterizing.
No, that's not allowed. That's American English.
Yeah, American English. Sorry. of the rowing garments and uniforms, but I feel like we were really at the top of the pile. People really aspired to have a JL suit, and then because of the new voice that I found, despite myself, our ratings and our persona, our character, and our story had really spread. So we came under in view of another family business. Kellen Brink and Jonathan Maloney were part of a family business who owned an amazing facility in El Salvador. And they were starting to look into rowing as of interest because they came from a pretty amazing rowing background. Kellen did herself, and she's been rowing as well. And so they had looked at rowing as a possible sport to start, moving into their brand. And some of you may have seen them a few years ago. They had the Charles, and it was called Wild Oar, and they brought a suit and some items that were showing. But they had seen us and kind of looked into the background, looked into the marketing possibilities, looked into what we do. And when they started to approach us, it was at a time when we were feeling like we had hit, I guess, couldn't call it a glass ceiling because I couldn't even see past us. We had outgrown our ability to do what we do well in the California facility. Things changed so much. Our process had grown very organically, but we could not keep up with the needs, the production needs, with supply needs. Our marketing was pretty much me. Our family resources, meaning my husband, myself, and my daughter Kate, that was well, and my Ken's sister Laura, who many of you know as our rep. We were just working way too hard with the facilities that we could not expand, and California had become more and more difficult to work with in terms of any expansion or improvement. So when they approached us, they brought with them the potential to take what we did and move it 3 steps further. So what we saw at that point, and they showed us, was an amazing facility in El Salvador, family owned, values that matched ours in terms of social responsibility, environmental responsibility, that actually went further than we could have even possibly gone. The way that they treat their very large workforce is beyond what you would hope for in a country that we all know is really suffering economically, politically, violently. It's a pretty scary place. But the facility they have, it's very highly sought after jobs. What they provide their employees, full benefits. There's a clinic on site for English lessons, best pay for in the region. They are contributing, free building materials. In terms of the surrounding area, where they're involved in water treatment, water saving facilities that they're, so it's infrastructure, and it's not just what they're doing. So this is even before we got there. Here they're bringing us this package, and we're thinking that this is possible. This is someone who believes as strongly as we do in sourcing cleanly, in behaving responsibly to your employees and to your customers, and very high quality production. So we started negotiations, we started talking, and it kind of all happened in summer of 2018. We decided to go into partnership. And additionally, that was when we approached US Rowing with a combined power of JL and Wild Oar, and made what I believe was a really great offer, which was accepted, and we became the clothing sponsor for US Rowing. And it's always been my dream, and never could have been possible without this partnership. So this all started again in the summer of 2018, and then we started the very difficult, more difficult than we even imagined, transition process.
So this was the slow. So this was closing down your manufacturing in California and moving it all to El Salvador, leaving just sales and marketing in the US.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
How on earth do you do that? Because I imagine you have patterns and experienced machine operators, and you have an online ordering system, which is, as you say, your unique sizing.
Mm-hmm.
Where did you start this?
You know, the place to start, and we started it in December. So imagine this, you've got this timeline in December. Hey, looks like a possibility. Let's get started. Let's do all the, this is here, we're getting us going. Let's start the process, get the patterns going. And, we've got this unisuit. That's the most important thing. So the unisuit, imagine in our facility in California, you have a rack with 72 unisuit designs, everything from a solid suit to to what we call a turbo. So we've got, curves and this and that and all these things going on. And our process was very organic. We had a human being who would pull out the pattern, lay it on the table. The instructions would say, this person is a medium +1 top and a small bottom. And can you take an inch off the leg? Okay. He lays the pattern down. He adds an inch, moves it down, and does it, and then does the bottom one, moves it on to the next thing. So this is what you do if you have a small facility where have been doing it for 30 years, and the operator and the cutter knows exactly what this means in this particular suit, and what a rower's body is asking for. Then picture a facility that has 2,000 employees, that has a laser cutting machinery, that has people who have not known our product, and then you have it's just mind-boggling, the difference in scale. I think of it and I describe it sometimes as we were more like a Ferrari. We're turning the corners, you were going along, we're going really fast, and someone says, oh, I need an inch off here, you turn the corner, you make these changes. And yes, you can make the changes quickly, but you can only do it, one at a time or two at a time. And it's very time consuming, which again is why we couldn't do what we needed to do where we were. So now picture this amazing, gigantic facility, people everywhere, top of the line machinery. It's more like a freight train. So you have to get everything lined up on the track, but you have to fill the freight train. You have to, make sure that the right fuel is, I'm kind of going off here, and it takes a long time to get this thing moving. But once you get it moving, it just goes like thousands of miles an hour, but it can't turn a corner very quickly because it's, it's this gigantic train. So again, we'll get back to the 75 patterns, and we were able to do all the sizing variations by hand. This other facility, new facility, had to digitize every pattern and digitize every size variation. So if you remember high school math, which I really don't very well, but there was there was a word for exponential. That was it.
Yeah.
So you've got an exponential explosion of the number of patterns that you had to create for one design. So the solid unisuit had to have over, I think it was 85 different patterns that involved all of the variations. Mm-hmm. Because each size that the customer wanted, medium +1 small, had to be digitally created so that pattern could be then sent to a laser printer, cut, move on down the line. And there wasn't Sergio who was cutting it and adding an inch here and mixing up with that and had the whatever. So if you then think of our 72 designs being exponentially growing,
yeah.
And that was just one garment. So what we had hoped would have been a smooth transition became an explosion of complexity that slowed down everything. And so, of course, meanwhile, time doesn't stop. Teams are ordering, they need garments for, such and such. And we were gradually breaking down our facility. So based on a timeline that we expected to be working smoothly, we had to then take instead of being able to send some simple orders down south, we had to take a lot of orders in-house in California, punch those out, and that just kind of multiplied as they started doing more of our garments and trying to transition as we got smaller and smaller. They were forced to take over more and more, and so add on top of this the complications of our online ordering system having to change to match the needs of their production system. So we had a system that had been developed organically over 35 years, basically. Here's how a person orders, here's how it goes, blah, 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 blah. And Sergio, I'm going to say, Sergio's still with us. Sergio reads it and knows what to do. Yep. And now it has to be a completely different system that spits out in the way that their system needs to understand it and work. So there were layers and layers and layers that were affected by this transition. And unfortunately, it affected so many teams and so many people. And we were at the time doing everything we could. And John and Kellen, I mean, I don't think anybody slept for months at a time. I think there's I think an internal photograph, I have to pull that back up somewhere, of John. I think he's like just laid out on the floor of the designing room down in El Salvador. There wasn't a lot of sleeping going on on either side of the border, but it wasn't for, it's not for lack of effort that these issues occurred. And I spent a lot of time helping our reps through this. I spent a lot of time talking to team organizers and customers, and it has been really a challenge to make it, kind of through every step as we fix a problem. We'll fix a problem, and trying to do our best to make it right for everyone who trusts us. And it's still a matter in process. At the same time, everyone I spoke to, we tried to communicate, here's what our problems are. We're trying to make it, I understand what it means when you don't have your uniforms in time for your race. I get it. It's so disheartening, especially when you're working with kids. And we really have done everything we can and are continuing to do everything we can to make sure that kids, and the improvements are like night and day. I mean, and whenever I talk to people, they'd say, why did you do this? Why can't why did you do this? It was working, and my answers are, they're better. They are, I mentioned the values. I mean, that was always key. Our decisions were made based on, our footprint, on, sustainability, all these things, and sometimes it's what made things more expensive. It would take a little more time. So the things that the new facility is able to do, I mean, I mentioned a few things, but they are 85% solar right now. This is a giant, 85% solar. And I think at the end of 2020 or early 2021, they're planning on being 100%. So JL is a part of this facility. There are 2,000 people there, and they do a lot of custom uniforms. But to make that many garments with solar power, it's beyond my dreams. I had solar panels, but it was maybe 20% of our production. They're still using Blue Sign certified mills, which is so important to me. There are recycled fibers in the garments they manufacture, and the fact that they've gone as far as they can towards sublimation, the amount of water that's used for every piece dyed fabric it's mind-boggling. It's terrible. I'm terrible with numbers. I have these numbers. It's okay. I'm going to look at the numbers because it's really important to me. And let me sorry, you can speak amongst yourselves. Talk amongst yourselves for a second.
We can think about our fantasies about the next line of row suits and gear that we would like.
Right. Okay. Okay. There we go. Okay. The number one wasted resource in apparel manufacturing is water at 2,700 liters per dyed garment.
Wow. Wow.
So imagine, I visited one of our mills many years ago in Italy in an amazingly beautiful facility who sourced their water from a lake below the factory. They sourced the water from below the lake, they used it, and then they returned it to the groundwater.
Aquifer.
Thank you. Aquifer, cleaner than when it came out. So this was, but watching what happens when you dye fabric, it goes into a giant drum. You force, thousands and thousands of liters of water. You force it through there several times at pressure and heat in order for these beautiful dyes to be there. And it's garbage. That's why I don't. So, but sublimation replaces that, uses, like hardly any water at all. The dye is liquid, so it's in there, but even the dye is water soluble, so it's clean. So moving to sublimation was something that we need to, and we still need to convince people. It's not the same as the sewn together pieces, but you're making a big difference in the resource use. The other thing that is my latest horse that I'm riding is single-use plastics. I have some baggies in my house that I bought last year, and I'm washing them. But in a manufacturing facility, you can't get away from bagging and packaging your product. So this year they switched the facility to biodegradable, recycled, and recyclable plastic bags. So there are 3 million plastic bags that are no longer that have been switched out to be recycled, biodegradable, recyclable bags.
Congratulations. That's amazing.
It's huge. And I'm saying this because it was important to me to understand that, JL is a part of this, but this family has made it a priority to make a difference in a bigger scale, and that's what's important to me. It's not just the few thousand plastic bags that we might have used. It's 3 million plastic bags. Okay, I'm off that horse for a bit, but there are a lot of reasons.
That's all good.
Yeah.
So, as is often the way in life, when something bad happens, something bad happens again. And tell us about the later part of last year for you. Right.
So one of the things that I've heard from people, and one thing anyone who's listening or from Facebook, I'm not a Facebook person. I don't go on. I've seldom am on, and it's mostly just to touch bases. But I do see people that say, where's Joline? Does she know these things are happening? Why did they do this? What's going on? Big reason, and you can see this thing running across the screen. Here I am running. Wait, it's kind of the bouncing ball. Yeah. It's not me, but I have disappeared, and I haven't been to events, and I haven't been very responsive to people. My husband came down with cancer this last year, and it's been a series of once it happens, things just snowball so quickly. I mean, you have to get on it. He's going through chemo, and this is very personal, and yet it changes from being personal gradually. And if any of you have gone through this, you'll recognize that I could barely say that word. I found myself trying to say it one time when someone asked me, and it's like I couldn't say the word. Now I've slowly, gradually, widened the circle of my friends, my support group, the important people to me, my circle, my family, and now it's like there's this big word, cancer. It's right there. There it is. We're doing fine, and it's because I'm an asker, okay? Because I sent out word and I said, here's what's going on in our life, and I asked for people to think about me and to send pictures of their kids, pictures of their travels, of flowers. I get someone who's sending me birds. So we're doing fine. We're going to do okay. It's something that has a very good prognosis. But there are complications that are keeping it hard. Anyway, this is why I haven't been out there, and I'm in the background. But one of the things also that I'm grateful for, besides my amazing support community and friends, is that I without having the facility in El Salvador and John and Kellen, who are heading up the whole transition, and my amazing staff at JL, not only the reps, the customer service, everyone there are letting us take care of what we need to do. And so I just wanted to send a big thank you out to the people who are keeping me up. Now the other thing here, where is it? Rowers, bouncing ball. Yeah. The other thing that's happened with having this cancer is that my husband, all of a sudden, out of the blue, has had some pretty, has had A-fib and A-flutter, and we're dealing with it. And then when you send out that information to your friends, you get back, wow, you know what? I had that, and so did, 8 people in my boat back in, 72. And so it's incredible to me the number of, the amount of incidents on the rise of A-fib and A-flutter. So I asked Rebecca to put out a poll,
right.
Just because I'm absolutely curious. I mean, there have been studies of rowers. I know in the United States, we have the cardiologists who are keeping, amazing track. The current athletes, they every once in a while come out and do a study, masters. But to me, it seems like a really high incidence of rowers who not only in my age group, but in the groups to either side who are coming up with this. And it's not like I'm raising money for awareness. I'm just saying I believe that rowers need to be aware of what it is and when it happens, and understand a little more that it can happen. So that's why I put out this poll, and it's interesting. I just want a conversation about it.
So for listeners, the poll is on a Facebook group that I'm an admin on. It's called Masters Rowing International. And we put it out yesterday, so it's only a day old. And already people are coming back, not only with their own experiences, but they're also coming already put that they have a defibrillator, which they carry in a coach boat. Other people have mentioned they have defibrillators at the boathouse and that they have training in how to use them. And certainly since my father died of an unexpected heart attack, he possibly could have survived if they had had a defibrillator near where the incident happened. As it happened, it was in a church, so they didn't. But these things happen. And so I totally support Joline's recommendation that we start the conversation and get the information flowing. And so if anybody listening has things they would like to contribute, I will say the group is open to join, but you are not instantly approved because I try to keep spammers out. So I personally check everyone who asks to join the group, and you have to answer a couple of questions so that I know you're a rower. If you don't answer the questions, it makes it harder to track down. I'll be messaging you saying, where do you row and things like that, because I want to keep the group honest and true and not have it, derailed.
I'd like to see your test questions. I think we should really.
I can tell you, the test questions are really easy. It's number one, what are your frustrations as a masters rower?
Okay.
And as a marketer, I designed that question. So the question is what's called, here's a lesson in marketing, it's called a golden question, where the answer tells me more about you than you would guess. Now, there are a few people who say I have no frustrations, but if you are not a rower, you will not know how to answer that question. Someone who put yes, I'm not gonna, yes is not the answer to that question.
That's right.
So yeah.
How many cars are in the picture? I hate those.
Oh no, nothing like that. It's just a question designed to show whether you're part of the sport. I will say, however, that once you're in, you are very welcome to invite your crewmates in and it says, invite them to join the group. And if I see that you're a member and you are inviting other people, I automatically approve them on the presumption that you are keeping the group honest and you invited these people in and they are your crewmates.
Cool. So Rebecca, there's just a couple things that I didn't get to say that I think if we're winding down, there's a couple things in the whole scheme of things that I wanted to point out. So we had talked about solutions to problems, because it's been hard, and I've talked to so many organizers, and our reps are working really hard, and things are changing every season. We had a really hard 2018. The last spring season, we had a lot of challenges, and people want to know, what have we done? What are we changing? So one of the amazing things about this facility is besides putting in place more quality control at each station, there are things that in the whole process of an order that could only have been done in the way that they're doing it, but it has taken a while. There's a 15-person art team now. I mean, because one of the things in an order process that takes time is getting everyone's design dialed in. It's not just, I want a star here in the name. It's people are using some pretty complex designs, and they're having to match what used to be our cut and sew designs into sublimation. So the challenge there is not only getting design to work, but making sure the colors are correct. So that has been a real challenge, and they're addressing that by adding to a really amazing and diverse team of artists, something that we could never have done. I had at our height, I had like 2.5, and I was doing it. Talk about no sleep. Yeah. So 15 people from a diverse backgrounds, who are all headed up by, a great management team. They're working on not only, turning the team's concepts into reality, but also really, really trying to nail the color matching. And that is so hard. Yep. across a changed system, different dyes, different fabrics. So that process is really going to speed up in the next seasons. We have analytics that are starting now to feed us information that is going to help us move forward. Numbers don't mean anything until you have enough of them to make a difference. So one of the things that we're tracking is how long it takes for an order to turn around. And our turnaround time, we really, really had problems, which is what caused things to be late for regattas. But I looked at it recently, and 94% of our orders are getting out under 4 weeks. So that itself, 94% is huge. Under 4 weeks, that's miraculous. So we're able to track that, and if we see things that are not, they're changing, they're trending, they're able to, down in the facility are able to pinpoint where the problem is, put more resources, put more people, and the management goes right to it. So that's a really big plus. We had problems in transitioning, literally in California and Philadelphia, where our customer service management is. We had problems, get this, with the phone system. And so people would call in for customer service, and our phones would drop. You'd think this would be easy. Anyone who has their own business, just phones. So we've gotten down to very fast turnaround. Our phones are now totally sorted out. Our customer service management, our teams they now have analytics. How long does it take to get back to people? How many people are in the queue at this time? We're dealing with these problems. We're doing things that are specific to a team's issues. If a team had problems with colors that didn't work, or a fabric that wasn't working, or something, we're replacing, doing one-offs to prove that, look, we did it wrong. This is how we're doing it to your quality specifications, because we can do that. It was things were caused by the transition. We are fixing it, and we fixed it, and here's to prove it. Here's what you can expect in the future. So we know we have a long way to go, but the steps that we're taking and the resources that we're able to throw at the problem is the difference. And that's what we're seeing now in this season. So I'm looking forward to we've also added more reps because we want our reps to be able to spend time. We're hoping to make more visits. So there'll be some new faces, and be kind to them. If you see a new face at an event, just give them a little time. It's like the new waiter or waitress gets at least a week to drop food on you. You still give them a tip. So we have some exciting new faces, and I'm enjoying working with them and getting to know them, and I hope that everyone will too.
So message to everyone listening: please continue to give us a try, and work with your rep. Listen, but also give answers and advice. And please allow at least a 4-week window for a team order.
Oh, well, no,
I'm in time for your race.
No, the window is not 4 weeks. The window is, I think it's a 5 to 6 week turnaround because it involves all these things. But I'm saying our delivery is our hope is to just over deliver. And by saying that we've got this amount of time, it means that we are doing everything we can to just prove that we want to get back and be the JL that everyone knows and expects. So that's our push. So no, give us more than 4 weeks. But if you get it in 4 weeks, you're going to go, ooh.
So what a hideous and amazing year you've had. What next, Joline?
What next? Well, I've got my ticket for the head of the Charles. So I'm really looking forward to seeing everyone there. Please come by and say hello. So that's the first thing. I am homebound pretty much for several more months, and I'm gradually working back. Oh, the other what next is my role has changed and will continue to change. And one of the most exciting parts about that is I'm less involved in the grasses. I'm not as much in the grass. I'm more in the water, not on the water, but I am able now to focus more on the community aspect that I've always felt was the strongest part of the rowing world is how we can support each other and how we can build and grow our sport so that more people can share and learn and be healthy. So I'm working quite a bit in my limited capacity. We're working, JL has really stepped up to help the Pocock Foundation because I really support the work that they do in helping disadvantaged youth around the Seattle, I'm pointing out here because that's the Seattle area out there, the Seattle area to experience rowing. They're working both a lot with the erg ed, which is a great way to get kids who don't have access to water into rowing, and to support by scholarships kids that can row and get on the water. So I really respect the work they're doing. I'm getting to know more of these amazing programs around the country, working with Tara at oh my God, my mind just I love you, Tara. The work you're doing is just amazing. I've gotten to know Arshay Cooper, who does a lot of speaking engagements around the country and is an amazing author and is making a real difference in people's lives and the work that he's done at Row New York. So the time that I'm able, the more time I'm able to learn more about these programs and see how we can be a part of growing them. That's what I feel is my role, and I'm hoping that what I learned as a campaigner, I can bring to the kids and the projects that are, I think, important to rowing in general. So this is again another real reason that we went into this partnership is because my nose was to the grindstone, and when that's all you know, that's what you do. And it was amazing and great, and I and so grateful for the life that allowed me, and the people that I met and able to work with and play with. But moving on is helping the brand to fulfill its potential with this new partnership, new products, R&D, better service, and at the same time moving into hopefully promoting the sport and growing the sport with the amazing people who are giving what they're giving, and seeing if we can work together on that.
So to totally echo what you're doing, if anyone is going to the US Rowing Convention, which I believe is early December, one of the speakers is a gentleman of my acquaintance who runs a community rowing program in London, UK. His name is Stephen O'Connor, and he will be talking about the amazing opportunity that I think it's called the Fulham Reach Rowing Club, which is by Hammersmith Bridge in London. Mm-hmm. They got going because a property developer wanted to build an apartment block, and the council obliged them to make a £1 million donation to community sport, and they put a rowing club in the basement, and that's what got them going. I think that's the right story. Now, Stephen is on Facebook. You can find him there, and he literally announced 2 days ago that he's one of the guest speakers at the US Rowing Convention. So hopefully you guys will get to hear his story over there. And he's also been a guest on Rowing Chat. And Tara Morgan is a host here on Rowing Chat too. So there are lots of very fine people with fantastic stories to tell and experiences to share. And in fact, I think if I can echo some of the sentiments that you just explained, one of the missions that I think Rowing Chat is on is to bring rowing stories to a wider audience so that people can learn from others' experiences and try things for themselves without having to make a ton of mistakes. One of the very first times I got asked to give a speech was at the Scottish Rowing Conference. And I was at the time teaching some very young kids. We took 10 to 14-year-olds and started to teach them scull. And traditionally in the UK at that time, you didn't start rowing until you were nearly 14, maybe 13. And how to do it, and how we put safety in place, and what was effective and what was not, and how we involved the parents, and how we adjusted or did not adjust the equipment, and how we took them to race or not to race, and so on. And it was fun for me, but it was very clear that a lot of the people in the audience were hearing this for the first time. They'd never thought that younger kids could be in a row.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So hearing more about the achievements.
Okay, there's one other thing while we're at it, while we're adding. I want to plug the US Rowing Convention. I've been there almost every year, and there are so many great speakers that come to this. It's not like it was, so many years ago where it was all, here's how, there are definitely coaching clinics, but every time I'm there, they improve the speakers, the number and variety of speakers who are there. And I think it's important for people in the region. It's in Philly this time. And there's a lot of rowers there, is to go and listen to where things are going. Listen to the direction that, we're bringing in more erg-ed. We're trying to be more inclusive. If people don't understand what it means to grow rowing, and if you become insular and all you want to do is row your own single or row your own pair or whatever, the sport is going to diminish. It needs to grow and expand and include more and more people. And by going to the convention, it's inspiring. It's not just, you're not just being talked to, you're being explained what can be done, and the amazing people who are doing these things. Please, if you're anywhere in the region, go to the US Rowing Convention, sign up and look at the list of speakers. You'll meet some incredible people.
And Tara from Seize the Oar is speaking with them at the moment about trying to get a table there for Rowing Chat to record some of the conversations with some of the amazing people so that we can broadcast them. That's not confirmed, but if anyone has any influence, we would love to be there in order to spread the word, because the thing about rowing is that it's not unique in every country. And if you're a member of US Rowing, I believe you can get recordings from the convention. But if you're not a member of US Rowing, there will be some amazing things there that will have validity here in New Zealand or in Australia or the UK or anywhere you can understand English. And I really hope that Rowing Chat can be part of bringing that message to a wider audience, but also that everybody who's involved can find ways that work for them. You know, whether it's this Masters Rowing International group, a ton of it seems to be people saying, I'm going traveling for work and can I get a row when I fetch up in your city?
Yep. So I don't know. I told you, I warned you I was going to rattle on. There's one other plug I want to make. So I'm friends with the Brian. I don't know anyone's last name, so I'm sorry. That's why people call me Jail, and it's okay. But Brian Todd, there we go, from GLRF, who has put together, he's been to some of the Masters internationally, but he goes to the events, and he's put together the simple things called the Rowers Pledge, and it's beyond simple. All it is, it's that if you sign the Rowers Pledge, it means you welcome everyone, irrespective of their orientation, of their preferences, it's because we welcome everyone. We do. And so by signing the Rowers Pledge, that's what you're saying. And so I've been seeing him at different regattas and this and that, and I kind of just, oh, look, well, you got this thing, that's great, I back that, but did I sign up for it? No. So finally I went to his site and I'm like, okay, now is I'm just going to see what this is. And I started to examine, and so I signed up. It's on his website, glrf.info. Okay, yeah. glrf.info, and it's amazing. It just, basically everyone is welcome into this space. It's a safe space. Please come. And I started to examine for myself, why didn't I ever sign up? And what is it? And my answer to myself was, because I do welcome everybody. Why should I have to say that? But then in a conversation, I was talking with Brian. He said, well, that's the point. When someone, walks into a space, you want to feel immediately welcome. And unless there's a simple sign or a note at, in the boathouse, you're I don't want to say it. You don't feel immediately welcome. This could be risky. Yep. This could be a place where I'm going to need to be on guard. And I think all of us, in some way, have felt uncomfortable walking into a situation where you can't be certain that you were going to be welcome or safe. For women, this is a daily problem. If you have daughters, what do you have to teach them? That you're not safe. You're not safe where you go, and here's how you need to deal with that. There was a great article, was it New York Times or LA Huffington Post, where someone, a female runner, explains why she has to be on guard and be wearing her earphones, just running through the city. We all have to be on guard. Let's make it immediately obvious that people don't have to be on guard when they walk into your boathouse. So I went onto his site and I thought, okay, there'll be a lot of people have signed up. There are not a lot of people that have signed up. It was so surprising to me how simple this is. And yet again, I had not signed up until I made it a point to find out, what this was. So he's going to be joining us at the head of the Charles at our booth. He also has a booth of his own there, but I think it's important. And again, here I'm on this other horse. I switched horses. It's part of who our community is, and that we do welcome, and we want to welcome people, but you need to make it more obvious. And this is one step towards doing that.
That's a fantastic challenge. And GLRF, for people who don't know, is the Gay and Lesbian Rowing Federation. Brian has been around for years, and he has a website that used to curate some really fun rowing videos as well. And he has a newsletter, which I've been on for a while, but I will reach out to him and see if maybe Rowing Chat can be part of his channel to get the message out there, because I was unaware of his Rowers Pledge.
Yep. Yeah. So it's one of the things when we it was Gay Pride Month. Again, it's just not it's feeling like you're aware and you're in the thing and everything's fine, and then realizing that there are things that you are doing that could be improved. I saw him during that month, and we started talking, and he said, "Oh yeah, and U.S. Rowing changed their logo, to the rainbow." I was like, "Oh my gosh, of course," and then I called us, and then we were able to change our, but I hadn't even thought of that, and it's stupid but how can you keep track of every so at any rate, the difference that it made to him, to see that that they felt supported by changing to the rainbow. Oh, so I'm learning every day. Thank you to people who come and help me. So
Joline, you have been a wonderful guest. Thank you for opening your heart and bearing your soul in some respects to the traumas that you've gone through and are continuing to approach with your amazing good humor and your friends' support of their lovely flowers and photographs and pictures of their kids, and for bringing us JL. I have loved your stuff from when I first saw it. I have worn some of it out and thrown it away, and I'm still buying JL. So my club is too, which is kind of nice for us. But thank you for coming and being so open and honest. And please, to the listeners, if you have the opportunity to support some of the causes that we talked about and the commercial operation of jlrowing.com, I think that would be extremely good for the sport of rowing across the board. Thank you.
Thank you, Rebecca. Wonderful speaking with you, and hope to see the rest of you. Come by and say hi.
Yeah, we have just a last-minute comment from Tara Morgan, who's been listening, saying, "Sees the oar, loves JL." Thank you, Tara.
Bye, Tara. Hi. Yeah, hi and bye.
Till next time, everybody. It's been a delight. I've been Rebecca Caro, and you can catch this and subscribe on our website, rowing.chat, and pick this up on your podcast app. Till next time, goodbye.